Hello and welcome to the regular business meeting for the District of Squamish for Tuesday, April 7th. Holland Squalin, Quistoktmet, Ta Squamish Ochmeo. As always, we're gathered to do our work today on the traditional unceded territory of the Squamish Nation. Please be advised that this council meeting is being live streamed, recorded, and will be available to the public to view on the District of Squamish website following the meeting. If you have concerns, please notify the corporate officer present at the meeting, which would be Ms. Flambureau. Before we get underway, I just wanted to recognize we have two councillors joining us remotely, Councillor Pettingill and Councillor Anderson. Thank you for joining us, and the remainder of council is in council chambers today. Could I have someone move adoption of agenda, please? Moved by Councillor French, second by Councillor Hamilton. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And just for those online, if you could try to use the electronic raise hand function to get on the speakers list, that would be great. And I'll try to keep track of it that way. Failing that, and if you don't feel you're recognized, please feel free to just shout chair at me and I will ensure that you are able to participate. So first of all, we have a delegation and with a proclamation request, and I will invite them to join us you go ahead. You're welcome to approach the podium, and I'll let you introduce yourself and the topic. Go ahead. The floor is yours.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Suzie Soman, and I'm the Community Program Manager for PearlSpace. And I was sharing with Mayor Herford that this is my 5th time in front of council in the last 5 years. So thank you. Thank you for allowing me to present on behalf of PearlSpace this evening. I'm here to ask the District of Squamish for a proclamation to recognize April as Sexual Assault Awareness Month. We call it SAM for short. For 25 years, SAM has brought communities across North America together in a shared effort to prevent and end sexual violence. This milestone is both an opportunity to celebrate progress and an opportunity to reflect on the work still ahead. This year's theme, 25 Years Stronger, Looking Back and Moving Forward, highlights the critical role that community efforts play in preventing sexual violence and creating a safe environment for everyone. PearlSpace supports survivors of gender-based violence and sexual assault throughout the Sea to Sky corridor. Our sexual assault support services team consists of 7 members who provide 24/7 access to community-based services through text, call, or chat. Team members can assist with hospital visits and forensic exams, court accompaniment, emotional support, and resource referrals. We also offer third-party reports, which is a way to report a sexual assault to police while remaining anonymous. For prevention and education in schools since January, so just 4 months, our consent educators have already made presentations on consent to 409 Squamish students, and we would add another 300 for Whistler Pemberton students. But we're just talking about Squamish tonight. And these are grades 7 to 12, sorry. Sexual violence affects people of all genders, ages, and backgrounds, and rates of gender-based violence have continued to rise since the pandemic. According to Ending Violence Association of BC, 37% of women and 11% of men in BC report being sexually assaulted since the age of 15. This is the highest of all provinces in Canada. At the heart of SAM is the belief that communities play a powerful role in creating change by amplifying the voices of survivors, strengthening public understanding, and encouraging open conversations about consent and sexual violence. We hope to build a safer, more supportive community for all. Throughout April, PearlSpace will host and partner in events across the Sea to Sky corridor in recognition of SAM. Highlights include a free evening screening of the Canadian documentaries Breaking Idol and Trafficked Voices on April 29th at the Adventure Centre in Squamish. And After Traffic Voices, we'll be viewing Traffic Voices first. Sue Brown, one of our lead people on human trafficking, will be speaking as well. By proclaiming April to be Sexual Assault Awareness Month, the District of Squamish will build a safer community, fostering a culture where everyday interactions are strengthened by the values of respect and consent. Thank you. And I'm wearing artwork from an Indigenous student in Mount Currie from 2 years ago that made this and let us sell them as a fundraiser.
Amazing. Thank you very much for all the work that you do and for your presentation here this evening. Council, do you have any questions for our guests? We also have the proclamation as it appears in the agenda. If we're ready for that. Councillor Stoner?
A quick question through the chair, if I might. As you mentioned, you've been here for the 5th year in a row. It's always helpful to have you here as part of the education and awareness component for Sexual Assault Awareness Month.
Thank you.
And I always wonder if there's more that we can be doing. You folks put on a lot of resources and education, so even just sharing that material, but there are other ways that our community can show up other than following you on social media.
Well, please feel free. Go check out our store window. That was just finished last week. Spread the word around our screening. And I've also dropped off some print materials, a few calendars and some easy click on and see what the schedule is. And I'm also going to leave some swag with our whistles and stickers this year as well. Share, spread the word, send them our way.
Okay, Councillor French?
I'm curious about the video screening. What's an appropriate audience age?
I believe it is, oh, that's a really good question, John, but I feel like it's 14 up. I mean, Breaking Idol is about the lead singer from the Headley band. And so that is like Made in Beast like that. Anyways, we all know that was a big thing. And Traffic Voices, I would need to look at because I didn't want to screen them until I got to watch them, but staff will know that and I can get back to you.
And is there any cost to?
No.
Okay.
No, it's free or by donation too.
I have my whistle from previous.
Great. Do you know that I have used it on our estuary trail more than once with my dog walking? I just clip it to his leash and then I always have a whistle. So for those of you that have a dog, take a whistle, put it on your leash.
Okay. Oh, sorry, Councillor Pettingill, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay.
Hi. Sorry to not be there in person. It's a little bit discouraging to hear where BC is in relation to the rest of the country. Do you have a sense of how Squamish is trending relative to BC or Canada?
You know, I would love to give you that information, but it's not easily shared. And we use Eva as our best people to dig down into that. As you can imagine, confidentiality and other things that go along with that and lack of sharing from VCH and RCMP together. So it's just, we count on Eva BC to get our best numbers.
Okay, Council, I'd like to move that April 26th be proclaimed a Sexual Assault Awareness Month in the District of Squamish. Is there a second? A second by Councillor Stoner. Thank you for coming to see us this evening.
Thank you so much.
And for all the work that your organization does, not just during Sexual Assault Awareness Month, but all year round. I'm happy to support this initiative and to drive traffic towards these events and awareness of this. And really, this is similar to Councillor Pettingill's of being a little quite disappointed in where British Columbia sits in the overall, or that this is something that we need to work on. But we do need to work on this as a society, and I really appreciate the work that you're doing in this category. I think that, and also the training that you're doing into the schools, I think is so important. And I appreciate you were talking about Squamish, but you have an impact throughout the corridor, and I think that should be recognized. So thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for that. And I know that's just a small example of what that impact is throughout the corridor. So happy to support this initiative in all the ways that we can, including this proclamation here. I'm going to go to Councillor Pettingill has, unless that's a legacy hand, Councillor, would you like to speak to it?
Yeah, just happy to support the motion. I think like the mayor, not happy that we have to still be fighting this, but glad that PearlSpace is there leading our community. And I think it really is a strong leadership. When I think back to my youth, I don't remember seeing the sort of programming and so on. And it's something that I sort of wish I had seen more of. And so I'm really glad you're doing that work. And I'm, attended many of the events for many parts of our community that PearlSpace is supporting. And it's really, I think you made a mention of it, it's sort of up to communities to be on the front lines of this. And you certainly are on the front line of leading our community to tackling some of these things. And so want to sincerely thank you for everything you do.
Thank you very much. We
Councillor Greenlaw?
appreciate your support.
Thank you. Councillor Greenlaw, go ahead.
Thanks. Through the chair, I just want to also speak in support of this, again, with the torn enthusiasm as referred to by other people, and just looking up headlines about the UK declaring violence against women an epidemic, and different communities, like just seeing skyrocketing needs for these resources for women. And to Councillor Pettengill's point, like I don't remember conversations around consent when I was younger, and certainly it was more like you need to protect yourself and get yourself out, right? And that very blame mentality of it. So happy to support this initiative. I just think the more education we can have around these pieces, the better. So thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously, just as it should. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you for coming. So next on our agenda would be unscheduled public attendance. If anyone has a matter that they would like to get before council that's emergent in nature and needs to be addressed prior to the next regular scheduled council meeting in 2 weeks, this would be your opportunity to do so. Seeing none, we'll move ahead with our agenda. We have no public hearings this evening, so we're on to the consent agenda. Would anyone like to pull anything from the consent agenda? Councillor Stoner.
Yeah, I'd like to pull item correspondence B2, as well as the committee of the whole recommendation E5. Zoning bylaw update, co-living regulation.
Okay, and just to be clear, that's the minutes for that relate to that are correct. You're pulling the recommendation.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, and that was 5 zoning bylaw. Okay. Is there anyone else that would like to pull anything? Councillor Greenlaw, we spoke earlier about a matter of the minutes. Was that?
Yeah, so if I'm not mistaken, in the conversation around the tennis courts, I believe it references the incorrect meeting. I don't think it was March 24th. I think it was March 10th. So, item E, what was it, 3? Yeah, E3.
Okay, let's so we'll pull E3 and we'll. Now, did the minutes, sorry, I just want to make sure that we're approving, we also included in this package, like I just spoke to, with the minutes associated with that. Should we pull that meeting as well, just to make sure that we're aligning the two? If this is recommendations wrong, then I'd imagine that's reflected in the minutes as well. So we should look at them together. Does that make sense?
Well, I think the only issue is that the incorrect date was referred to. So I don't know if we need to pull minutes for that, we can, but I think it's just
Sorry, I'm going to go to our corporate officer house to make sure that we're correcting the suite of things here. Yeah, go ahead.
Thanks very much. I just want to confirm that this isn't the visual of how it's laid out in the agenda. The recommendation under 3, there's recommendation colon, and that applies to all of the subsequent motions from the March 24th Committee of the Whole meeting are underneath that. The tennis court recommendation is only the first statement that council directs staff to explore the term alternative uses for the Eaglewind courts with the exclusion of pickleball. And then everything below that is applicable to the March 24th. Okay.
Okay, so that tennis, so we don't need to pull that number 3. I think that addresses that thing. Okay, so is there any, oh, sorry, Councillor Pettingill and Anderson. So I'll go to Pettingill, then Anderson. Would you like to pull something, Councillor Pettingill?
Yeah, 6B4, which is the RCMP FIFA letter.
Okay. Councillor Anderson, would you like to?
If you can hear me, Mayor Herford, that will be item B1, Eaglewind bike lane and parking elimination correspondence.
Okay. Yep, we can hear you. Thank you for that, Councillor Anderson. We'll deal with that matter at the appropriate time. Is there anyone else that would like to pull anything from the remainder of our, what is remaining of our consent agenda? See, Councillor Stoner moves the remainder of our consent agenda, seconded by Councillor French. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. We'll deal with those in the items, the pulled items in their appropriate space later in the meeting. So, so now we're on to 7A1, District of Squamish Fees and Charges Bylaw, and for consideration of first, second, and third reading. And I will turn it over to staff to introduce themselves and run us through the presentation. The floor is yours when you're ready. Go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Melissa Bombluto, Corporate Officer, and joining me today is Julie Bengi, General Manager of Corporate Services. And we have some additional staff either participating online or in the audience that will be available to answer questions following the presentation. It is quite brief. We are here today to present a bylaw amendment to District of Squamish Fees and Charges Bylaw 3225/2026 for council consideration of first, second, and third readings. In order to charge a fee, the Community Charter Section 194 requires that the fee be established by bylaw. Fees can be imposed with respect to services provided by the municipality or use of property, municipal property, and or the exercise of authority to regulate, prohibit, or impose requirements. A quick background, in October 2025, Council repealed the previous fees and charges bylaw and adopted the current fees and charges bylaw, bylaw 3185. Staff are moving towards a twice annual update to the bylaw to ensure that fees are being reviewed on a more consistent basis. This includes one fulsome amendment annually, likely in the spring, and an amendment in the fall to update utilities. Each department is responsible for reviewing and ensuring schedules related to their departments are updated appropriately. Since the new bylaw was adopted, we did find some emergent issues with the bylaw that we would prefer not to wait until the spring to address. As you can see on the screen, they're summarized, and there are 4 specific changes that we would like Council to consider this evening. The first is regarding Schedule 8, Engineering Operations and Services. It's a correction to line 8.4 and related to water turn-off and turn-on fee, and this should be at cost rather than the $50 in the bylaw currently. And this is also to ensure alignment with Schedule 24. There's also a correction in the schedule to 8.6 for estimated cost of construction fees. There were the line for 1 million plus. The cost for construction was missing, and there was an error to the amount for the line 500,000 to $1 million. Schedule 23 is wastewater rates, and there was a correction in line 21 for workshops and small industries. There's a typo to the amount listed there. Delaying this would result in inequitable distribution of rates and subsidization of service by utility rate payers. And the final schedule that needs that correction is to water rates. And there's a language adjustment that is required at the bottom. And this is another recommended amendment that if it isn't made, would result in ratepayers subsidization for service, and current fees are not reflective of the actual cost to deliver the service to the impacted property. And the best way to view the changes is in attachment 2 of the report to council. And finally, the recommendation this evening is, and I realize, being the corporate officer, I should have picked up on this, but there's actually an error in the bylaw citation that I have on the screen here. It's missing the amendment number. So it's District of Squamish Fees and Charges Bylaw number 3185/2025, Amendment Bylaw number 3225/2026 be considered for first, second, and third reading. If the bylaw is given first 3 readings this evening, we'll schedule it on the next regular business meeting for adoption. And then in about a month's time, you will actually be seeing another bylaw amendment for fees and charges, which is the spring, more comprehensive amendment that we are trying to move towards. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Council, questions on this? And our minute taker does have the totality of the recommendation. So when we're speaking about the recommendation, we'll treat it as inclusive of those pieces around the amendment and so on. Councillor Stoner, you can get started. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair. I think most of these make good sense and are reasonable amendments. My question was around the change in language that would require consumers or owners of a property, when requesting water be turned off, pay and it like the actual cost as opposed to just a flat rate. That made sense to me previously when it was after hours. But is there not just a level of service that is expected if you need your water turned off, that somebody can't do that on their own? And so as ratepayers, can they not just request that that their water gets turned off if need be? Or do they have to pay for that every single time?
Good Chair, thank you for the question. And I apologize, I'm filling in for our utilities manager who had to suddenly switch out with me. I'm going to ask if you can give me a few minutes if you have other questions, and I'll come back to that. Thanks.
Councillor Sommer, was that your, that was the question? No, that's fine. Council, any additional questions? We'll have an answer on this one momentarily. I'm not seeing any, so we may need to take a time out just to get this answer so we understand that. And I'm feeling like that's where we are. So let's take as we're waiting for a response. Or you have a response? Okay. Feels like we may have the answer here.
Sorry about that. I did get briefed on it, but the way the question was worded, it now makes sense. So we do have two different rates that will apply. We have a business hours rate, which will be based on staff being a bit more available and not taking into account the need to call out staff after hours. And then we have an after hours staff. So it is still at cost. So it's not a flat rate, but it is based on what time of day it is that staff are called out. And I do have example rates if you're interested. Yeah, so during business hours, it would be $234 based on our current rates based on a 2-hour call out, which is a typical amount for during work hours. After hours call out rate is 4 hours at double time. So it works out to $404. It doubles it essentially, $444.
Okay. Thank you for that. I've got Councillor Pettingill next.
Yeah, just this topic has raised the question for me. So if I have a valve in my own property that I can operate, I can just do it myself. This is where there's something inaccessible to me, which is an issue for certain properties. And this isn't sort of really generally applicable to people with water.
Through the chair, if I caught that correctly, no, if you have a water valve that is on your service, you should not be turning that on and off yourself. Those valves are located on the district side of the property line, and for a reason, because we want to be the ones who ultimately operate that valve. So if you have a valve on the property side or within your house, absolutely, residents can turn that on and off as required. But the valve that we are talking about and that this rate would apply to would be specific to the district coming out. Residents should not be touching that valve themselves.
Thank you.
Council, I think I have no other hands. I'm looking for a motion. Go ahead, Councillor Hamilton.
Sorry. Is the actual rate changing? Because when did that actual rate change? Sorry, can of worms. It was $50 before we had some deeper conversation about after hours. And is this 250? Is that new to this conversation?
Through the chair, the bylaw was updated in December to the language about being at cost. And this is, I understand, a cleaning up of the language to reflect the after hours and during hours side of it.
So just to be clear, what we approved in December was approval to it costing $250-ish during office hours, correct?
Through the chair, so the change in the language in December was simply to at cost. And so it's not specifically changing it to these numbers. These are just examples. So the change happened in December to reflect charging the rate at the actual cost of the work. These numbers will change with time naturally as the real cost of doing business goes up or down, for example.
Okay, thanks. Okay.
Okay. I believe we're ready for a motion. Councillor French moves the recommendation, all three readings, and I will second that. Would you like to speak to it, Councillor French?
This feels like housekeeping to me, pretty straightforward. Thanks.
Thank you. Other comments on this? Happy to support this. Thank you for bringing this this forward, and I think anything we can do to clarify our regulations or our fees and charges is incredibly important. So I'm happy to support this, and I see this as clarifying and enshrining the intent of what was adopted back in December and continued refinement. So pretty easy to support from my perspective. I see no other hands for comment. I'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you so much. So, Council, we have some adoptions today that actually have some presentation associated with, which is slightly uncommon. So we'll give this next piece will be is adoption, consideration of adoption of the zoning bylaw for CD 118, which is at 38140 3rd Avenue. And when staff are ready, feel free to take it away.
Sorry for that delay. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Carrie Hamilton, planner for the District of Squamish, and I'll be presenting to you today Amendment Bylaw 3093-2024 for adoption and a land development agreement authorization for rezoning file RZ 000047, which is located on 38140 3rd Avenue. So Bylaw 3093-2024 received 3 readings on June 17, 2025, with the following motion presented on this slide. Today's presentation is just to quickly outline a few changes since 3rd reading. They include a change to one of the conditions of adoption and some amendments to the LDA since 3rd reading. So the motion at 3rd reading included the following subclause, which was A, road land dedication for active transportation required prior to adoption. Instead, staff are recommending that this dedication is secured through the LDA and will be dedicated to the district following the development's construction and prior to the building permit occupancy. This change is to ensure that the land dedication is based off the final construction drawings and supports the land being used in the interim for construction purposes. A few amendments to the land development agreement commitments are also proposed from 3rd reading and are demonstrated in this table. Red is removed and green is added. They include changing the CAC contribution from development to building permit issuance. This change is to align with the 5-year CAC negotiation clause. To add the land dedication to the LDA, as just presented, and the removal of some engineering conditions. Through further storm modeling work, storm upgrades to the laneway are confirmed to be sufficient for this development, and the Pemberton Avenue option is no longer necessary. Through further investigation work with BC Hydro, the existing hydro pole will not require relocation to support the development. So no updates to the public engagement since 3rd reading, other than that the Ministry of Transportation and Transit provided approval for this rezoning on February 4th, 2026. So staff are recommending that the mayor and corporate officer be authorized to execute the land development agreement associated with the amendment bylaw CD 8118-38140 3rd Avenue, number 3093, 2024, and as attached to this report to council. And that amendment bylaw CD 118, number 3093, 2024 be adopted. So alternatively, the mayor and corporate officer could be authorized to execute the land development agreement with the following changes as proposed by council, and that council would direct staff to bring back the amendment bylaw for adoption following execution of the amended LDA. So implications of this alternative recommendation would be that any changes to the LDA would be subject to the applicant's support and would likely result in a return to council for further amendments. That concludes the quick presentation today.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Council, questions on this? Councillor Pettingill, go ahead.
Yeah, just a quick, I think, clarification. The original, I think it was LDA included flood and no gas covenants in the LDA changes, that there's some flood related things in there. Are the covenants still part of this and they just weren't mentioned because they're not changed, or is that sort of what's going on here?
Through the mayor, those conditions are still stand and would be registered upon adoption.
Thank you.
Council, any changes or sorry, any questions here? Okay, I don't see any other hands. If we're ready for a motion, I'd welcome it. Councillor Hamilton,
Yeah, I'll move the staff recommendation.
thank you. I'll second that. Would you like to speak to it?
Yeah, thanks very much. This is a rezoning that we've approved already, and the changes here to the LDA seem to be small changes that happen during the progress of developing and designing a property, which seem completely in line with sensible development practices. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments on this? Go ahead, Councillor Stoner.
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair, I too will be supporting the motion on the floor. I think that the requests for the LDA amendments are reasonable and well rationalized, both through the staff report and the work that has happened since third reading in order to move this to adoption. I do hope that some of the ongoing work that has been done between third reading and the LDA amendments will help streamline some of the work for servicing agreement and trying to pull some of that work forward to see this project move forward. I do also want to recognize the shift in the CAC, securing the community amenity contributions later in the process in order to come to fruition on our idea of sunset clauses for the 5-year CAC negotiation, and appreciate both staff and the proponent willing to work with us to get that in. I think that's an interesting component of this particular application that we've been able to see come to fruition. So thanks for the work.
Thank you. Any other comments? I'm speaking in support. The changes all make good sense to me, and I think often we get into discussions at rezoning that are really into a DP level of detail, and I think that this is sort of that as well. Some of the things included were quite originally were quite prescriptive, and as the process is worked through, ultimately weren't needed to be included here. So I think this makes good sense to me. I'm happy to support. So with that, I'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. What was that? Sorry, were you opposed? Councillor Greenlaw opposes. Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, now we have the indemnification bylaw adoption, which we do not have a presentation on, but we will have a presentation following this. So I will move adoption of the indemnification bylaw, second by Councillor French. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. So we are on now to the alternative approval process, results report, and adoption of loan authorization bylaws. I will turn it over to staff.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Melissa Bomblito, Corporate Officer, and I'm here with Julie Benke again, GM of Corporate Services. The purpose for today's presentation is to present the results of the Alternative Approval Process, or AAP, for 3 loan authorization bylaws and request Council consider adoption of the bylaws. The bylaws include District of Squamish Flood Protection Loan Authorization Bylaw number 3160/2025, District of Squamish Whitaker Slough Pump Station Loan Authorization Bylaw number 3162/2025, and District of Squamish Fire Truck Loan Authorization Bylaw number 3166/2025. And I would like to point out that there was an error in the staff report on page 3 under annual taxpayer impact. In the staff report, it states that the impact on business owners would be $2.26, and the actual impact is $2.05. And the $2.05 was accurate in the previous reports to Council. However, we have not had a chance to update it for this report. The loan authorization bylaws received first 3 readings at the June 3rd, 2025 regular business meeting. Following 3rd reading, the bylaws were sent to the Inspector of Municipalities for approval, which was received September 2nd, 2025. The loan authorization bylaws, for the loan authorization bylaws to be adopted, elector approval must be received. Pursuant to Section 180 of the Community Charter, municipalities are required to seek approval either through assent voting or a referendum or the alternative approval process. The AAP requires electors to submit a response form directly to the district if they are opposed to the borrowing. If less than 10% of the total number of determined electors submit a response form by the established deadline, the bylaws may be considered for adoption. Council initiated the AAP on December 5th, which set the deadline for elector response forms as February 16th, and a fair determination of eligible electors was 21,897. The February 16th date was determined to be 30 days after the statutory notices were published, which were on January 8th and January 15th. Following the February 16th deadline, it was determined that the following elector response forms were received: 1 for bylaw 3160, 1 for bylaw 3162, and 2 for bylaw 6166. The determination is made by the corporate officer and is conclusive, and the bylaws can now be considered for adoption. If the bylaws are adopted, the next steps include requesting a certificate of approval from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs after the 30-day statutory quashing period has passed, and that's approximately May 7th, and we'll be sure to count that following this meeting. Once the certificate of approval has been received, the district may act on the borrowing bylaws by submitting a requisition request to the Squamish-Lillooet Regional District. Thank you very much, and the recommendation before Council is on the screen.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Council, any questions about what we've seen? We've approved these projects through their own process, including budget and as well as the budgeting process. So the projects aren't new, but questions on the process to date, or I would also welcome a motion at this point in time, as we are quite well versed with these projects and this process. Councillor Hamilton.
I'll move the staff recommendation.
Okay, and that's inclusive of all 3? Yep.
Yep, all 3.
Thank you. Are you seconding that, Councillor Stoner? Any comments?
Thanks for walking through the process of the AAP process. Yeah, well, let's move forward with the loans.
All right. Go ahead, Councillor Stoner.
Yeah, just briefly, not just walking us through the AAP process, but the process that it takes for us to actually secure elector assent to take on any form of debt. It's been almost a year, I think, if I think back to your presentation when these bylaws were first given reading. And so it's quite the process that you shepherd us through, and we do need to take on debt. And so thanks for doing so in a coherent manner, and so that our community knows what things we're taking debt on for.
Thank you. Councillor Pettingill.
Yeah, thanks. It is important that we're transparent on these things. I think in this case, though, we found the AAP process, and here it went smoothly. But as we can see, it's an incredible amount of time and resources for something that we discuss at length publicly in our budget process. It's in our financial plans. The regional district then has another public level of validation. And so I know we've had these discussions with the province, but this does seem an area where there's room for efficiencies if the province would maybe work to that. I think, you don't have to throw the whole thing away, but there are maybe some opportunities to tighten some of this stuff up, given the level of transparency that's already built into our process around debt.
All right. Any other comments on this? Just happy to see this move forward. Thank you for all the work. It is a tremendous amount of work from many departments to get to this point. I do think that it is important that the municipality has the ability to borrow to ensure that we can deliver on the services to our community that they expect, and also that those that are benefiting from the service have opportunity to contribute in a reasonable way, which is what this was. What I think financing does largely in this context. So happy to see this move forward. I do think this process has room for improvement, but I do want to recognize that at least there was not a referendum for each of these items, which was a practice prior to the regime that we're operating under at this point in time. So, but I agree there's room for improvement in the process, but happy to see this advance at this time. So with that, I'll call the question. All in favor? And motion carries unanimously. Thank you. So, Council, our next item is next on our agenda is our largest topic of the day. So I'm going to suggest this is a good opportunity to take a quick 10-minute break. Staff can get set up for that, and then we will come back and get to work on the discussion of the Chikai Debris Flow Barrier Services Agreement First Amendments. So we'll be back. 10-minute break. Thank you. All right, welcome back. We are on item 8A1, the Chikai Debris Flow Barrier Service Agreement First Amendment. And we have staff with us. I'll turn it over to them to introduce themselves and run us through the presentation. Over to you.
Sorry, you got to bear with me here. Share. Oh. Right. Good evening, Council. My name is Jessica Gagne. I'm a project engineer with the District of Squamish. With me is David Rolston, Senior Manager of Infrastructure Planning, and Rianne Sousa, Director of Financial Operations. We're going to be presenting tonight on the Chikai Debris Flow Barrier. The intent is to provide an overall update on the project, as well as to present information and seek Council resolution on an amendment to the services agreement referred to as the First Amendment. The barrier is being constructed under a service agreement between the District of Squamish and the Squamish Sea to Sky Developments Limited, referred to as SSSD. SSSD is a partnership between the Squamish Nation and a private developer. Council received a report and provided authorization to execute this agreement in July 15th of 2024. This agreement was executed the next day. The agreement requires SSSD to fund and complete the construction of the barrier on the district's behalf, while the district retains ultimate ownership of the completed barrier and related infrastructure. The district accepted responsibility as the local diking authority for the barrier and will be responsible for the associated costs of ownership, including operation and maintenance and repair costs of the structure once construction is complete. Construction of the barrier began in July of 2024 and is currently about 90% complete. Work completed so far has included placement of the roller compacted concrete, referred to as RCC, which makes up the bulk of the structure. They've completed construction of the reinforced concrete outlet that the river will flow through. They've installed the timber bridge across the top of the outlet, and they've completed the downstream access road and the majority of the south berm. Substantial performance is anticipated to be reached in early May of this year. The key items left to complete for substantial include repair of the outlet base and installation of the grillage beams. Final acceptance is anticipated 2 months after substantial in early July. All outstanding design items must be installed prior to receiving final acceptance. This will mainly include fencing, gating, instrumentation, as well as reclamation of the site. I'm now going to go through a bit of a timeline, general timeline of construction of the outlet. For clarity, the outlet is the concrete structure that the Chikai River flows through, as you can see in the top right photo. The little blue arrow that's a bit hard to see is the direction of the flow of the river. The Chikai River was diverted in August of 2024 to July of 2025 in a temporary river channel to allow for construction of the outlet, as well as the right abutment. The construction of the outlet was completed in June of 2025, and a roughly 1 meter thick layer of alluvial fill was placed on top of the concrete at the base of the outlet. The Chikai River was then diverted back through the outlet in July of 2025 so that the contractor could begin constructing the left abutment. 2 debris events occurred on the Chikai River on September 21st and 29th of 2025. It is worth noting that there was no safety incidents on site due to the event or during the entire length of the project so far. In the photo on the screen, you can see an image of one of the debris events going through the outlet. This was captured by the contractor on site. The concrete base was inspected soon after the debris events went through, with limited damage noted to the concrete, but the alluvial fill was wiped out, or essentially all of the alluvial fill was removed. Over the course of October, November, and December of 2025, the concrete base was eroded due to the Chikai River flowing directly on the concrete. The erosion led to exposure of the rebar matting, as you can see in the photos above. The speed and extent of the erosion was not anticipated and therefore required remediation to the concrete and a redesign of the base. The redesign of the outlet base included placing large granite stones over the existing concrete base as the stones are more abrasion resistant than the concrete. Ultra high performance concrete will then be poured between and underneath the stones to hold them in place. The design includes a series of check dams that stick up out of the grouted stone pitching. These will encourage sediment to accumulate within the channel to help protect the underlying granite stones from abrasion. This is viewed as a secondary level of protection, or more simply, a belt and suspenders approach. The redesign ultimately has resulted in a more robust design and is intended to meet the original operations and maintenance requirements for the outlet, including repair frequency. As to date, the repairs to the concrete slab are complete. This has included removal of the damaged rebar where required and placement of that ultra high performance concrete over the base. Installation of the granite stones is ongoing. And then in order to complete the work within the outlet, it was necessary for the contractor to redivert the Chikai River. They were no longer able to do passive diversion in a temporary river channel because the Chikai barrier is now in the way. So they are dewatering the river by 14 large pumps that are pumping the flows from the river up and over the barrier, and flexible pipes, which you can see in the photo there, the black pipes on the left photo, and then they're discharging it downstream, which you can see where it's on the right photo, there's some water being discharged at the end. The repair work is anticipated to be completed by end of April of this year. So end of this month.
Once the barrier is complete and has received both substantial performance and final acceptance from the district will become the owner of the barrier. Further, the cost of ownership will become the district's. The cost of ownership include operations, maintenance, and repair costs. The district may recover all or part of the costs associated with barrier ownership by levying a local area service tax, which I'll refer to as an LAS tax, against the properties located within the boundaries of the local service area. To do so, the electors within the local service area must approve moving forward with this method of taxation. The community charter provides different options for obtaining approval of the electors, which are either through petition or assent of the electors. A condition for SSSD to receive substantial performance of the barrier is it must allow for a local service area to be established, which will enable LAS taxation to be levied. On October 7th, 2025, Council passed a resolution to direct staff to allocate the taxation to recover costs associated with barrier ownership 50-50 between LAS taxation and general taxation in the 2026 to 2035 financial plan. Prior to levying the LAS tax, the district must follow the legislative process prescribed by the community charter. In September 2024, the district entered into an indemnity agreement with the province. The province will indemnify the district for specified debris removal, restoration, and capital costs related to debris flow events. The indemnity agreement requires the district to start making reserve contributions when SSSD is awarded substantial performance, which is estimated to be in May 2026. The indemnity agreement requires the district to contribute $840,000 annually, increasing annually by CPI, towards operations, maintenance, repair costs, and building reserves for future debris removal following a debris flow event. The contribution is anticipated to be required in 2026, the year of estimated substantial performance. Due to the changing barrier construction conditions, the operations, maintenance, and repair costs may be impacted and need to be reassessed. The district is working through a collaborative process with SSSD to complete this assessment. Until this is completed, the district won't be commencing the establishment of the local service area. Therefore, LAS taxation cannot be levied in 2026 as the March deadline for commencement of the local service area has passed. Since the district cannot levy LAS taxation in 2026 and the obligations under the provincial indemnity agreement are anticipated to start in 2026, an amendment to the servicing agreement is being presented for council's consideration. The amendment is to enable the district to collect $420,000 from SSSD in 2026, so the district can fulfill its obligations under the provincial indemnity agreement. The next steps are as follows. The district will work with SSSD and their consultants to determine if there will be any changes to the operations, maintenance, and repair costs. After the costs are finalized, the district will establish the local service area. To note, staff will come back to council as commencing establishment requires council approval. Once SSSD meets all conditions under the services agreement for substantial performance, it will be awarded. Upon substantial performance, the district will make contributions to reserves as required under the provincial indemnity agreement. Once SSSD meets all conditions under the services agreement for final acceptance, it will be awarded. The district then takes over as owner of the barrier and the 2-year warranty and maintenance period begins. After the 2-year warranty and maintenance period is complete, the district is responsible for all operations, maintenance, and repairs. The staff recommendation is that council authorize the mayor and corporate officer to execute the first amendment to the debris flow barrier services agreement. This concludes the presentation. I'll now turn it back to the chair.
Thank you. Council, questions? Councillor Stoner.
Thank you through the chair, and thanks for the update and the ongoing work to see this project through. I'm curious what is covered by the 2-year warranty and maintenance, and if that is like well defined, if it's, and how we would manage any sort of considerations in that 2-year period once we receive ownership.
Through the chair, generally things that are covered during the warranty and maintenance period would be things related to construction deficiencies. So if there were any deficiencies that arose after final acceptance, after a final inspection, essentially. So, you know, this could be things like concrete cracking or just damage that is incurred following that final inspection.
Is that damage that occurs from any level of event, or is it like after, like above a certain level of event, it wouldn't be covered under the warranty?
Through the chair, damage from debris flow events is specifically called out as an exclusion because that wouldn't be at the fault of the developer. So it's more things that would be related to a construction deficiency and not an event or that caused the damage.
So this past experience in the fall, would that have been considered a debris flow event? That would, so what I'm trying to get at is we are trying something new here with a renewed version of the base of the barrier. We will not have had a chance to go through a fall cycle and potentially test the new version before we take ownership. And so I'm just curious if the warranty and maintenance or the warranty would cover that sort of experience that we just had this past fall.
Through the chair, that's a good question. I think in this case, the damage wasn't caused by the debris flow. The debris flow wiped out the alluvial fill, which created the conditions, and then it was the natural flow of the river that actually caused the damage. So I think if something like that were to occur again, it would be considered as a construction deficiency.
Councillor Pettingill and then Hamilton.
Yeah, thanks. A bit of a related question. It's just, you know, I understand we had a design that we thought would work, and it turns out there's some challenges with the design. Everyone's working collaboratively, we've come up with something new. How at this point are we validating the design and saying we're comfortable with this new design given our sort of experience thus far?
Through the chair, so this construction issue arose during the construction period. The redesign was completed by BGC, the developer's consulting engineer, and they engaged a third-party external reviewer, as well as completed their own internal review processes as required by engineers and geoscientists BC. The district has reviewed, but was not an approver of these. This was not considered as a major design change, which is defined in the servicing agreement. It's more of a field change. So the district didn't have a formal role in the review, but I would say that we are comfortable with the design. The design is based on precedents from other similar type structures. So the grouted stone pitching is a method that's been used in other projects in Europe, and there's some case studies that were reviewed in terms of different design solutions, and this was determined to be the most robust. So I think it is a solid and robust design, probably the best option that's out there. And as Ms. Gagne said earlier, there are it's sort of a belt and suspenders approach. So the granite is expected to perform much better than concrete, but also the check dams are designed to promote alluvial fill to repopulate following a debris flow, and that's really going to be the first measure of protection. So ideally, the river is not even going to be impacting the granite. It will be impacting natural alluvial fill and river gravel that will be the first buffer from the forces of the river. So we think this is the most robust design solution that's out there.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I guess what I'm trying to wrap my head around is this, and what's proposed makes sense to me as sort of an update to the design, but it wasn't part of the original design, which we were okay on signing off with. And so we discovered through experience it didn't actually quite cut it the first time around. Like, are we? I guess how do we? And maybe you can never be sure, but how do we know we're doing a better job than our first go around of making sure this is the reasonable design?
Through the chair, well, it's a more robust design than the original solution. It has gone through a review process, and there is also the 2-year warranty and maintenance period. So these are sort of the, I suppose, the best we've got at this point, and I think that it is a much more robust solution. So a higher degree of confidence that it is much improved from the original design. And then the warranty and maintenance period is sort of an additional degree of protection to ensure that if there are any deficiencies that arise during that period, that they would be corrected at the cost of SSSD.
Okay, just one last follow-up then. So just understanding, so we get past the 2 years, things seem okay, but we have an event. Will the provincial indemnity cover us if the turns out, oh, there's a different aspect of the design we didn't think of, and so the operations and maintenance and the big event is more than we thought of? Are we sort of good through the indemnity agreement on that side, or is the indemnity agreement really just the more about the debris and stuff and less the actual capital infrastructure?
Through the chair, the indemnity agreement is mainly to cover debris accumulation and the cost of removing that debris from upstream of the barrier. And there are some limited structural elements, specifically the steel beams that span the outlet that would be covered by the indemnity agreement, and any other damage that's incurred by debris flow would not be covered by the indemnity agreement.
And just on that, the damage that we saw was, like you said, is sort of a result of a debris flow, but not the debris flow itself. does that type of thing, like, where does that fall? Like, the damage here wasn't from a debris flow necessarily. And how is that, like, in which part of what agreement is that defined, or is this all part of the journey that we're on as far as, clarifying these things as we're working?
Through the chair. So it would clearly not be covered under the indemnity agreement because it's not the steel beams and it's not related to removing debris upstream of the barrier. So if this hadn't occurred during the warranty and maintenance period or during the construction period, then it would be a district cost. And it's also worth noting that it's expected and it's written into the operations and maintenance manual that repairs will be required within the outlet. So it's assumed that on a 10-year timeframe that minor repairs would be required, and on a 25-year cycle that major repairs would be required. So these repairs were obviously much sooner than that, which is what's required the redesign. And now we're thinking and hoping that we have a design that will perform to the level of protection that was originally written into the operations and maintenance manual. But the costs beyond the warranty and maintenance period, these are just considered costs of ownership for the barrier and would be the responsibility of the district.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hamilton.
Yeah, thanks very much. Do we have a way to examine the barrier, particularly the outlet base, before the end of the 2-year warranty period? I assume that the base is going to be underwater, so difficult to just look at, and you could have cracks and deterioration of the grouting between the granite without being able to see that unless the river gets diverted. So do we have a mechanism to see that base before the end of the 2-year warranty period is up?
Through the chair, there'd be a visual inspection from a distance that would be possible. To get in and do a more thorough inspection than that would require diverting the river, which is a major undertaking. So it's possible that during a low flow period that we could go in and see things closer up, or if it's visible from afar that the alluvial fill is within the barrier, then we can have a high degree of confidence that the granite stone pitching and the concrete that lies underneath that would also be in good condition. But it is challenging to get in and to do a detailed inspection without having to divert the river.
Okay, I see your hand, Councillor Pettingill. I was going to go around and see if anyone that hasn't asked a question has one at this point. I'll venture just a couple of my own, and then I'll come back to you, Councillor Pettingill. Sorry, it says next steps in the report, and one of them is that staff seek council endorsement to commence establishment of local service area, which is really I understand that piece. What are the touch points where council will understand when, like, how are we expected to, how is staff expecting to communicate to council that, when these certain things have been achieved over time? So, substantive completion, like handover, like all those steps. They weren't here as a next step, because that's not next step necessarily for this funding mechanism, but just broadly for this project. How do we, and are there decision points in that for council going forward?
Through the chair. So we have been presenting, even though this isn't a district-led project in terms of the construction, because it's such a major project and something we know the council and the community are interested in, we have been presenting on it in the key project updates, and we'll continue to do that until we reach project completion. And potentially, if there's interest, we could even extend that beyond and into the warranty and maintenance period. So those would be the main touch points. And then there would be further touch points related to establishment of the local area service. So sort of on an as needed basis as council resolutions are required. And yeah.
And thank you. That makes good sense. I think, I guess the question is, at this point in time, do we know that there's any other outside of these sort of financial mechanism pieces, are there other decisions on this project we should be expecting at this time? Or is it really this financial piece around how the service establishment gets put in place?
At this stage, staff don't anticipate any additional touch points. It's possible that something could arise, but we don't expect that at this point.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I was trying to understand the path that we're on, not, okay. Councillor Pettingill, and then that's the end of my speakers list, so I'll be working towards a motion.
Yeah, just looking for clarity on, so there's an indemnity which has some limitations. We will, over time, build up a tax service to fund operations and management as well as taxation, but there may be a gap. Is insurance or anything available to that, or that is something that we would have to go to taxation to deal with?
Through the chair, we are presently working with MIABC to understand insurance options. So we're in the exploration period of that. The reason that we can't be further advanced with it is the reinsurers that would be actually underwriting a policy require you to be very close to actually taking over ownership before they'll commence in discussions. So that is where we're at, working with MIABC.
Okay, thanks. And then just one more. So this design change, do we have a sense of the cost of this design change relative to the total project cost? And I suppose it maybe isn't indicative of other design changes we may or may not encounter, but I'm just looking for some way to contextualize, like, did this double the cost and that's the sort of risk that we have to just face, or this was, expensive, but in the scheme of the whole thing, it's not that big a deal.
Through the chair, the district hasn't been provided with the costs for the repair. So we can't speak with a high degree of certainty, but I'd say it's not doubling the cost. It's more on the, I would think, single-digit % of overall construction costs.
Okay, so council, we have I appreciate this update from staff and the questions from council. The question we're being asked today is very specific around the contents of the amendment to the debris flow barrier services agreement. Are there any other outstanding questions as we try to get to that? If not, I'd look for a motion. Councillor Stoner, are you moving that? Is that a seconder over there? So moved by Councillor Stoner, second by Councillor Hamilton. The staff recommendation, would you like to speak to it?
Yeah, thank you through the chair. And the motion is for the mayor and corporate officer to execute the first amendment to the debris flow barrier services agreement. Thank you for the presentation and the update. I know I've gotten a lot of questions as to what's been happening up there, so I think this will help clarify for our community the ongoing work that the proponent's been doing and that staff have been doing in order to ensure that there's a solid understanding of all the work that's going on up there. As presented today for the amendment of the service agreement, this is really an important piece to ensure that we remain whole in our 2026 financial plan and recover $420,000 into the operation and maintenance reserve for when we take this asset on. That was going to be done through local area service tax, and because of this delay, we're not able to do that. So the staff report lays that out very cleanly, and I think that this is a very important move for us to ensure that we remain fiscally whole in our 2026 budget. So thanks for the work, both to staff and the proponent for willing to embark on this amendment.
Thank you. Other comments? Councillor Pettingill, go ahead.
Yeah, happy to support the motion, which is really just about, the timing has had to adjust as we've been working on the project. And so it's making sure our financials align with the timing in my mind. So that makes sense. I think my questions about the barrier itself and the design pieces is really just about at the end of the day, making sure this is going to be such an important piece of infrastructure to protect our existing community and not just a new development. And so I just want to make sure that it is a mitigation that we can actually maintain properly in the long term, because it's going to be so important to such a large portion of our community. So appreciate the responses and the work to make sure we've got all of our bases covered there. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Go ahead, Councillor French.
Thanks, Mayor Herford. I've heard from a few folks about the impact of the high water events back in September on the debris barrier construction, and want to reassure those folks with those concerns that the district is taking on no additional financial burden because of that damage. That was made clear tonight, so I appreciate that. And I also believe that the damage that we're hearing about really highlights the need for that protective structure. And I will also add that I feel for the project proponent, additional costs, additional time. I'm sure this has been stressful. It sounds like the proponent has it under control and we're pressing ahead.
Thank you. Speaking in support of the motion, I really appreciate the update of exactly what's happening and what's being done to mitigate the impacts of that. But the decision today is really, again, a timing and a financial piece, and so makes it quite easy to support. And I'm happy that the silver lining of this is that this happened at a time before it transferred to the municipality, and the design can evolve as part of the construction. And so I'm happy that that issue was what came to be apparent at this point in the game, and ultimately the end product that we'll be receiving as a community will be of a higher quality than it would have been originally, despite everyone's best efforts to make it. So I'm happy to support this. It makes good sense, and I look forward to continued updates on this as the project advances. So with that, I'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you so much. So we have, so moving on through our agenda, we have no late agenda items. We have no correspondence action requested. We're on to items referred from the consent agenda. So we'll deal with the correspondence first, as in the order they appeared originally. So I believe we have Councillor Anderson. You pulled 6B1, which is the Eaglewind bike lane and parking elimination topic. Is that correct? Oh, yep, the floor is yours. So go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Herford. Yes, this Eaglewind Boulevard redesign topic has generated a substantial volume of correspondence. We have correspondence from the 55 Community Society, Chamber of Commerce, 150 petitioners, a neighboring strata, 2 businesses, among others. I made a request immediately upon our receipt of this correspondence that it be included in an upcoming regular meeting agenda. That was some weeks ago. It is my opinion that a correspondence package of this nature and of this volume should automatically be placed on the council agenda for council review and potential discussion, and simply for the public record. I see that there was some newspaper response, or response to inquiry perhaps from the chief newspaper on the part of staff on February 25th. I'm not sure that this is an advisable practice. At any rate, a little bit, to my view, a bit suboptimal response to that volume of concern, and the issue of maybe missing certain issues raised by the correspondence. At any rate, on January 30th, 2024, when the Three Summits development application, or the land development agreement amendments, was brought before council, council discussion didn't address the Eaglewind Boulevard redesign or parking issue. We missed it, to be honest, on my part anyway. Our focus was on other matters. I won't go into detail as to what those were, but there were some other matters that preoccupied our discussion and review. The report to council on that date of January 30th, 2024, and I'll quote from it, adding vehicle and pedestrian traffic to this area highlighted concerns for a lack of cycling infrastructure along the boulevard and the intersection. And as a result, and staff elaborate the solutions that were proposed, the current redesign. In fact, that concern was only highlighted by one person among 65 persons providing input into that matter through the public hearing and otherwise. So there was not broad public advocacy for it. The correspondents in raising this issue, I think, are correct. Parking
Councillor
is
Anderson,
a general.
I'm looking
I'm
for
coming to a, yes, I will be coming to that.
Okay, thank you.
So parking is a general neighborhood problem in this area. It's longstanding. We've learned some lessons already that we're applying in our practice. The 55 Community Center underground parking is typically full during events. We have the issues. These issues are going to rise again through Bailey Street and the development that have already and will arise in connection with that development nearby. The staff comment that, quote, public stalls should not always be expected for business uses. I think we have to also apply our lenses of the OCP goals we have for the downtown, indeed for this area, and our accessibility plan goals. So perhaps the neighborhood request for consideration of the parking facilities being implemented by Three Summits, perhaps a mitigation strategy could be devised there. At any rate, I'd like to propose a motion that this correspondence be referred to staff and that with the recommendation that staff engage with the following correspondence: the 55 Community Society, the petitioner's liaison, Dr. Brandon Baker, the Streams Strata Council, and the Breathworks Studio Business. That is my motion. If there's a seconder, thank you.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for the motion?
Can
Councillor Stoner?
I just request that the motion be reread?
Yeah, Councillor Anderson, if you could you reread the motion or forward it on to council via email?
Certainly.
Just to make sure that we understand exactly what
Very
it
good.
is that we're debating.
It might be clumsy for me to write it up for you in my current circumstances, but I'll read it out as clear as I can. That this correspondence, Eaglewind neighborhood correspondence, be referred to staff with the recommendation that staff engage with the following correspondence. I've listed the as follows: the 55 Community Society, the petitioner's liaison, Dr. Brandon Baker, the Streams Strata Council, and the Breathworks Studio Business. I may add that it is my understanding that the Chamber of Commerce have received correspondence from staff, and so I haven't included them on the list, but these other persons involved in the correspondence package have not received a direct response from staff. This is my recommendation. Thank you. I actually would emphasize engage with in the motion. Thank you.
Okay. I'm seeing Councillor Greenlaw, are you seconding? You're seconding the motion? Okay, Councillor Anderson, do you have? I'm hesitate to offer this opportunity. However, do you have further comment? Would you like to speak to your motion, or do your earlier comments? We could consider those in support of this motion.
Yes, I will only be very brief in wanting to recognize the volume of concern, the general nature of the concerns. We're dealing with symptoms here of larger issues. And so I think it's important in this matter, since we have literally a couple of hundred people represented in the correspondence, that we make effort to make a proper engagement on the part of our staff. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll look to the seconder. Any comment on this, Councillor Greenlaw? And then I'll go to you.
I just think it's important to have as much transparency as we can between the district and members of the public who reach out to us. So I think it's in our best interest to have staff reach out and just have direct conversations with these groups.
Councillor Starr.
Yeah, thank you through the chair. Can I just seek clarification from the mover, Councillor Anderson? You mentioned engage, and then you also mentioned have staff respond. I'm just curious if you can elaborate on what your expectation is by moving this motion, recognizing that the engagement process happened at rezoning in 2024, and the servicing agreement is a delegated authority to staff.
Thank you. Well, I'll speak first to the engagement that took place in 2024 and the year prior. I think that that was a clumsy process. It was an amendment in 2024. I also believe that with the nature of the neighborhood issues ongoing regarding parking, that the input might have been a little bit more active rather than passive. That's maybe a hope. But in addressing engagement, I would hope that staff would be ready for conversation, because I can assure you that the organizations involved, the strata, the community society, are anxious for a conversation. So my expectation is that staff can reach out, perhaps with the letter that the chamber, for example, has already received, but that we should expect, staff may expect, that these organizations do wish to engage and propose solutions and discuss issues. Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and appreciate that clarification. I think I will support the motion on the floor simply from the fact, as I look through the council mail, this particular response has been marked as complete because it's been referred to this agenda. And so if we do want staff to respond to it, we need to refer it to staff for a response. And I do think it warrants a response. I want to be really cautious about using the word engage, given where this development is at. There's a signed servicing agreement that is in line with our subdivision control bylaw. And so while I very much appreciate that our staff are willing to engage, and I saw their response to the chamber on addressing some of the concerns in community, I think being really honest about where we're at with this particular development proposal is important, so folks know the limits of what that engagement will be. It really is a communication and understanding of where the pain points might be and how that can get addressed probably through parking management more than anything else going forward. But so that this gets referred to staff for a response to those folks, I think is a worthwhile effort.
So I'm challenged with this motion. I could see a refer to staff or reply broadly. The getting very specific and the language around engagement is really challenging for me. This is at this point in this process on this project, that engagement, if we look at our IAP2 scale, is really at the inform level. The room for adjustment here has largely passed, and I think so. I'm really challenged by this motion. I think refer to staff for information and follow up would be better, and I think there's potentially a communications piece on this, but the specific piece, I know it's meant to elevate those voices that didn't get that maybe haven't had a reply on this, but I actually think it's very selective, and I'm not completely comfortable with this approach. So I don't think I'll be supporting the motion in its current form, and I think when I think about this, it's like to what end? To communicate. That's the informed level. If there's some other intent by the mover that there's implying that there's opportunity for this to evolve in a substantive way, that opportunity doesn't exist at this point in time, in my opinion. And I just want to also take the opportunity, Councillor Anderson, in your comments around the reply to a piece to a press inquiry, and as much as that was a reply from staff, those all come across my desk. And if you have feedback on how we're replying as an organization, ultimately I own those. So I've had that we've had that conversation in private, but I wanted to make sure that everyone understands that here as well. So I welcome feedback from council or anyone in community if our communications misses the mark, but ultimately that goes through an approval process that does ultimately come across my desk. So I won't be supporting this motion. I just wanted to clarify that point. Councillor Hamilton.
Yeah, thanks very much. This motion has given me significant pause for thought. I absolutely believe it's important for us to hear from our community and for our community to feel that they've been heard. This is a situation where a decision has been made. There was engagement, there was feedback before we made the decision. And there's a risk at this point to reopen a conversation on an agreement we've made with a developer over a year ago following public engagement. And so independent of whether of the nature of the conversation, parking versus bike lanes, I think we are not well served to take a public engagement process, a decision, and then once that decision comes to fruition, reopen that conversation again. I think that's a dangerous road to walk down for us as a council, because it means that as soon as cranes go up or construction zones come up, as soon as our decisions become visually apparent, that's when we're going to start to hear feedback, and we need to hear that feedback earlier and take it into account. And in this case, I think we have. So I will not be supporting the motion on the floor.
Thank you. Additional comments? I'll go back to you, Councillor Anderson. I see your hands up. If you, I'm going to go to Councillor Pettingill first, and then I'll come to you, Councillor Anderson. Then we need to resolve this matter and move forward. Go ahead, Councillor Pettingill.
I guess I'm sympathetic to the idea of, the chamber got a response of making sure the person that led the petition and a few of the others groups get a direct similar response. I worry it'd be a bit disingenuous to talk about engagement and so on, because we have a signed agreement, and it's not as simple as, oh, well, we agree with the developer and we could totally change things, but we're not willing to. That's not really the situation. It's because of the agreement a lot more challenging. We can't impose things. I think the public isn't always clear about our leverage with developers and where we are in the process. And so I don't want to misinform people. We did, and it was clear to my recollection of the discussion and the things I was considering of some of the trade-offs we are making. So I don't think this is a new thing. I think there are trade-offs here. We are talking about nearby on Bailey Street, a parking structure. We have talked about in our transportation master plan over $100 million in extra costs if we don't get on a mode shift. And so there are many factors and many trade-offs as a piece of this. And so I'm sort of more comfortable with making sure that the correspondence goes up on our website, that maybe council can share some of it with people and council can have some of those discussions as well. I think if we want a broader and deeper engagement on parking in general, that is maybe a separate discussion. And that's a bigger topic than this one issue, I think. And I don't want to mislead people and misrepresent that, hey, we can totally shift direction here, because I think for better or for worse, that opportunity has sailed. And so I think we need to be straightforward with people.
Okay, Councillor Anderson, just before you make comment here, Councillor Stoner has an amendment she may want to bring forward. Would you like to make comments now, or would you like to hear the amendment?
Mayor Herford, my comments will be general in nature, so I prefer to make them now, and
go ahead.
that might be best. Firstly, to staff's credit, since this correspondence has arisen, and the newspaper article, of course, back in February, some mitigation measures have already been pursued between staff and, well, the issue. In a couple of additional accessibility stations. There may be more. There may be more ideas that may come forward through engagement. This is a general comment. I also would point out that in conversation around parking issues in the northern area of downtown, the suggestion is made by one of my colleagues is that the Bailey Street Parkade is going to be a solution. Well, if the Bailey Street Parkade is going to be a solution in some new ways, why don't we look at this new parkade Three Summits is putting up, and maybe there's some agreement that can take place there that we might take active part in. Who knows? There may be more mitigation ideas. Secondly, I generally wish to encourage some humility as we pursue complex active transportation infrastructure solutions for neighborhoods. In my former neighborhood, the Land Development Agreement Active Transportation Solution of 2014 has never worked, and it has never been implemented. And I think we just need to sit back and say, you know, maybe the neighborhood had something to say that we missed. Let's be a little bit humble as we pursue complex solutions for neighborhoods. Finally, well, that's really it. I think that that's behind my suggestion of engagement. Is maybe there's some solutions out there in conversation, and maybe we should be a little bit humble in complex circumstances. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Stoner.
I'd like to propose an amendment, which would be that we replace the word engage with reply to.
Okay. Seconded by Councillor Hamilton. Would you like to speak to it?
Just briefly to my earlier comments, and I hear you, Councillor Anderson, that we need to be clear in the way that we communicate these things. We also need to be honest with where there's opportunity to actually make substantial shifts. So absolutely reply. I would expect consistent open lines of dialogue, which our staff do. This has just been resulted in a hiccup in allocating it to our council agenda as opposed to council mail referred to staff for correspondence. And as you mentioned, our staff have already identified some additional solutions in this area, and I think they'll continue to hear the feedback and work where they can within the legal constraints that we have signed with the land development agreement with a developer. And so there's a few different forces at play, but absolutely lines of communication should remain open. We should reply to folks when they write to us as best we can. But I just want to be really honest about our level of engagement here.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, with that change, I'm certainly willing to support this. Willing to support the amendment, and would be willing to support the motion at the end that would result from the amendment. And I think the key piece here is that we're open and honest about the possibilities that do or don't exist anymore now that we're signed in the LDA with the developer.
Thank you. Other comments on the amendment? Councillor Pettingill?
Yeah, thanks. I think we'll be supporting the amendment, and it would make the main motion supportable for me if it passes. Just to address some comments from my colleague, I was not trying to suggest the Bailey Street Parkade is a solution here per se, but it is in the things that where at least in my considerations of the various different things that we are looking at in totality, on balance, I think this all made sense to me, which isn't the same as saying that solves all of these specific desires. But it was just a holistic thing with our transportation master plan and so on that were part of my overall considerations. I do think that, yes, and I always try to learn. I think we always do adjust. We see our staff doing what they can. They have talked about the spots that have been removed. Most of them are not available in the winter. They have found 4 extra spots, and so where there is work within the legal agreements that exist, that is being done, and I would expect that to be done. I think it's on us as council to take some of these discussions further. I think, again, if there's a bigger discussion to be had about parking, I think that's a separate thing we can have more generally about parking. And so I think this is here in this case the correct course of action.
Councillor French.
Thanks, Mayor. I support the amendment, and the amendment makes the main motion supportable for me because I too was grappling with that phrase "engage with," a step too far. So I support the amendment.
Thank you. I'm speaking in support of the amendment. I think this makes it better. I do think that I don't know that that will that it's enough to change my my concerns broadly on this, as it's still quite focused versus all the hundreds of folks that provided their names to the petition and so on. So I think and just I'll take this opportunity to say that change is challenging, and when we look at how spaces evolve over time, maintaining the way things are is also maintaining the current build out that doesn't meet fire truck access requirements. So there's a life safety piece here as well. I think the bike lane parking discussion is actually a bit of a red herring in this. This is about improving the community safety, and an issue that we see in community right from this this access of the fire truck access, as well as the traffic calamity that is the current alignment of that roundabout as well, which this project also addresses. So I find the wording in the petition a bit challenging, where eliminating existing parking and asking for retaining current parking infrastructure. A lot of the current parking infrastructure is retained. Those center parking spots inside of the boulevard are maintained. And yeah, I'm not particularly excited about this motion overall, but I will support the amendment. So with that, I'll call the question on the amendment. Oh, sorry, Councillor Anderson, did you want to speak to the amendment? Sorry, I missed you.
Thank you, Mayor Herford. I just wanted to remind council that the asks from the petitioners were not only to retain the parking, but also to look for another solution that is within the facility that's being provided by Three Summits. So just to make that clear, there are some realities around that boulevard, but they're looking for they outlined two alternate solutions be explored. Thank you.
Okay, I'll call the question on the amendment. All in favor and opposed? The Councillor Anderson opposes the amendment. Amendment carries. Now we're back to the main motion as amended. Any other comments on this? All right, with that, I'll call the question. All in favor and opposed? Mayor Herford opposes. Motion carries. Oh, Councillor Anderson, are you opposing, or? So you're for support. Okay, thank you. Mayor Herford opposes. Motion carries. Thank you. Next piece, we have 6B2. Councillor Stoner, you pulled this piece, I believe.
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair. I'd appreciate that there was a note at the top of this correspondence that staff have been in touch with the folks there. I was curious, and we might not have the right folks in the room to answer this question, but in the absence of policy around accepting AEDs being life-saving devices, I'm just curious how we navigate this conversation and if you need direction from council to do so. If we don't have the answer, then we can refer it to a future meeting.
Is there someone available to comment on that at this point, or do we need to? I know our practice is that it should go to an additional meeting. Just if there is comment, we would take it now.
Thank you. Through the mayor, we'd prefer to refer this to a future meeting, just given staff are still in conversation with the proponents or the interest group.
All right, I will move that this item be referred to a future committee of the whole for discussion.
Thank you. I'll second that. Any additional comment?
Yeah, just briefly, and I think this is an interesting one. I know that there is a very good an important process whenever we take on new assets is always comes with a potential envelope of consideration, whether it's ongoing maintenance, operational costs. To me, this one just feels like it falls in a bit of a different category, given the life-saving nature of it and the fact that these do often exist in public spaces in other communities that I'm aware of. And there's obviously some best practices around that, but I'm just curious where that falls with regards to our workload and not wanting to miss out on the opportunity presented.
Thank you. Supportive of this, I'll support the motion, and I think this is a great example of community, recognizing a need and offering up a solution, and whether that's a big chunk of the solution or the small upfront bit and we get the big bit at the back end of supporting it, that's not clear to me. But I do think it warrants further conversation, and I look forward to that when it happens. Councillor French.
Thanks, Mayor Herford. Yeah, I definitely support having a broader conversation on this. And in this conversation, I just find myself thinking about this pickleball location isn't necessarily the only place where an AED might be appropriate. And thinking ahead to the lawn bowling facility once that's in place. So I definitely would like us to have this conversation.
Okay, with that, I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Councillor Pettingill, you pulled 6B4, I believe.
Yeah, I think looking maybe for a bit of a soapbox, but it's a bit
Hold on, if you're going to do that, could I have you move whatever you'd like to do with it, and then I'll give you opportunity to speak to it?
Yeah, I guess I'll move receipt and then speak to it.
Okay, Councillor French seconds. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm a bit challenged by this ask, and the reason why I'm not asking, I think, just because it's sort of late in the day for a letter to the province, but maybe something for us to think about in conversations with the RCMP and province. And this is about, for those that don't have the agenda in front of them, that some RCMP resources may be redirected to support the FIFA events in Vancouver. And I know a lot of people are looking forward to, and I think there's a lot of benefit in the world coming together around something. There can be a lot of benefit to that. I hear a lot of talk about the economic benefits, but it's not clear to me that the economic benefits flow through to the people that actually have the greatest need. And, I know in Squamish, we're talking, looking at some of our budgets and so on. I think, to have our limited RCMP force directed elsewhere, I'm not sure that FIFA or anyone is cutting us a check. And, um, you know, I struggle with that. I was listening to some news reporting this morning about how folks are really stepping up efforts to make sure that the homeless and so on in Vancouver aren't put on buses and sent away during the games, which tends to be how in the past these sorts of things have happened. And so I guess for me, it's wanting to make sure at the end of the day that at the very least, if this is the route we're going to take, that the province is covering this time and we're not funding this. Because I think, we have a lot of challenges and things that we have identified as priority in terms of people struggling with homelessness and these sorts of things, where we would like to see at least from my perspective, our resources directed. And so I don't want to be a downer on FIFA events per se, but I think we need some thought about how we manage these sorts of things and how we make sure the benefits of these sorts of things actually flow through to where the benefits are most needed. So thanks to my colleagues for listening to me rant for a little bit.
Thank you for that. Other comments on this? Speaking of support of the motion, I'm challenged by this as well. It does feel that we're always asking for more resources, sort of generally from the province, but 800 to 1,000 officers may be required from other provinces and territories for this purpose sort of speaks to the scale of what that means for the officers from inside British Columbia. But there's also not a decision here for council except whether we decide to write a letter or raising some specific concerns. So I think receiving this is appropriate at this point, and as this develops, if we become aware of some things that are will potentially acutely impact Squamish specifically, then we can might be appropriate to provide some feedback in future. But at this point in time, I think receipt is the appropriate course of action. So with that, I'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Now we're on to there was a recommendation from Committee of the Whole. Councillor Stoner pulled item is this 6E5, the zoning bylaw update regarding co-living regulation. Councillor Stoner.
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair, since our discussion about this a few weeks ago, I've been humming and hawing and further reflecting on the discussion that we had. And I think we had really good debate at Committee of the Whole. I'm not going to reopen the whole debate here, but I have had some further thoughts, and I'm trying to decide the best way to do this. May just make some further comments on the record for staff consideration as they continue to go out to engage on this topic. But two of the areas that staff were seeking feedback on were the proposed zones in which co-living would be permitted. And in the staff report, it is fairly restrictive to R1, R4, and R5. And I think for me, one of the intents of moving this work forward was to try and create some further definition in order to facilitate this type of housing in a clearer way. And so reviewing the alignment of the proposed zones to bring it into alignment with the allowable densities in each of the existing zones. So R3, for example, allows for triplexes, but the proposed zoning for co-living would not be allowed in an R3 zone, and that feels like it's mismatched. So one piece that I've been reflecting on is making sure that this is allowed in any of our zones that would already allow this level of density. And then also,
if I could just for process here, I think ultimately through this, the best way to provide direction would be that we sort of endorse or modify the feedback that was a recommendation of committee.
Yeah.
So, and I think we're close. Like, thank you for articulating that piece. So the item B, the proposed zones or to which density or something, like we can maybe work on a way to amend that bullet point to achieve your goal. And if you keep that in mind, or we can all keep that in mind as you make additional comments, then we can work towards something here. I just wanted to get that out of my mind as it started to crystallize. I'll pass it back to you.
So I would propose that we consider the motion as presented from Committee of the Whole, but with the following additions to item B, that the proposed zones in which co-living be permitted include R1, R4, R5, and R3 to reflect the triplex density allowed in that zone. I can write these out and send them to you, Riley. And then in addition to feedback provided at the March 4th Committee of the Whole on item C, staff also consider increasing the allowable number of, what are we calling them?
Is it private
sleeping units?
Private sleeping units?
Private sleeping units up to 10 as opposed to 6.
Are you seconding that? Okay. I'll just look you to Are we feeling pretty good about that 10-minute taker? I'm getting some nods. Okay. Would you like to make additional comment on this?
Appreciate my council colleagues for entertaining my meandering thought process on this. As I mentioned, I keep coming back to this as something that we're trying to put some structure around because it's something that exists, but I'm don't want it to create too many additional barriers. It's meant to be able to provide some clarity on what is being designed for in alignment with what is already allowed under a single dwelling unit zone, but in a slightly different purpose. So I still agree with the intent of adding a definition into our zoning bylaw and some regulation around that, but for it to be fairly permissible is the direction I've been landing on. And that's what my proposed amendments suggest.
Okay. Thank you for that. Go ahead, Councillor Hamilton.
Yeah, thanks very much. Absolutely in support of making this co-housing proposal more inclusive to allow it to go into more zones and to allow consideration of up to 10 units. I think that that's well in alignment with the actual effort that this living space, this way of living is meant to address, which is finding ways for folks to finding ways for folks to live more affordably. A question for the mover, if I may. Is there a reason you chose to not include R2?
Because my reading of the R2 zone is that you can't have triplexes in the R2 zone.
And is it the relationship between the density of a triplex versus a duplex? Okay.
Go ahead, Councillor French.
Thanks, Mayor Herford. I support these changes, and the zoning is consistent with some of the comments that comments and feedback that I had when we discussed this, and the change from 6 private sleeping units up to 10. I fully support that.
Go ahead, Councillor Pettingill.
Yeah, a bit torn here. I think I will likely support this, knowing that this will come back to council for readings. But I still have some discomfort, and I think I expressed it at the committee of the whole. For me, there is the sort of multi-generational type housing, which is essentially allowed right now. You know, may not be actual family members, but that sort of style of housing is sort of allowed. What we're seem to be talking about here, and I think we use the word, is more like dorm style and so on. And I'm not sure I'm totally comfortable with uh you know, just letting the market take care of that piece. We do have some tools we could consider, I think, which may be important for me getting all the way there. And I think I also did say, like, if we are going to go down this route, then maybe it makes sense to allow more bedrooms, similar density, but more bedrooms, so we can get economy of scale and get affordability. But I want to make sure that that doesn't translate into $3,000 sort of little units in this sort of thing. And so for me, there's a bit of a dance there still that I'm not sold on. So support this for discussion going forward, knowing this will come back to council for readings. But yeah, I'm sort of a bit waffly on where the total package lands right now.
Thank you. Speaking in support, I think this makes it better. I'm curious, the inclusion of the being explicit about, I think, our intent, that is to be quite permissive, a little bit more than the original feedback was in the meeting. I think this accomplishes that. I'm not sure that the 10 unit, I think we'll have more discussion, and it warrants more discussion around what's the right number of units in each zone. And that R2 zone might be appropriate for a smaller scale of this. And I don't know that I want to eliminate that, but I think this makes it better than it was. And without going back into the material supplied and going back to the tapes to really relive that discussion, I think this is as far as I'd like to go with the. I can support this, but I think going that next discussion point, this might introduce more debate or an additional touch point at the next down the line. But I think it's will make it better ultimately. So I'm in support of that. Councillor Anderson, sorry if I missed your hand earlier, but last word goes to you on this.
Thank you, Mayor Herford. I won't be supporting the motion on the floor with a general concern. That is, I would like to see the co-living strategy succeed. And it is for that reason that I would prefer a more conservative, careful approach. Some of the language I hear from my colleagues about more permissible, quite permissive, that's where we want to go. I'm concerned about this. Neighborhoods are concerned. I think the issues are well recognized. There are various, including parking in some neighborhoods. So I'd be happy to revisit this additional permissibility or permissiveness or expansion of the scope later. But at this time, I would like to take it one step at a time, more careful approach in implementing this strategy. Thank you.
Okay, with that, I'll call the question. All in favor and opposed? Councillor Anderson opposes. Motion carries. Thank you. I believe that concludes everything that was pulled. We have no business arising from minutes. No notice of motion. Open question period, clarification related to agenda items. If anybody in the audience has a question of clarity, welcome to ask it at this point. Seeing no takers in the, sure. So yeah, absolutely. Just to do that, we need you at the, to come to the podium just so that it's, is recorded. So it'll actually be the podium further to your right, sir. There you go. Go ahead. And if you could start with your name and neighborhood in it.
Chris Martin, and I'm up in Garibaldi Highlands. And it's just a question emanating from your last discussion about the co-living. And I know in England we have house of multiple occupancy and those sort of things, and it's very regulated. I guess the question, if you go to 10 bedrooms, for example, what's a practical application? What sort of building do you anticipate that'll happen in? How many kitchens would there be? How many bathrooms? Those sort of issues. I think that needs to be discussed and thought about carefully. Okay,
So,
thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you for coming tonight and for asking a question. I'll take the first pass this, and council, if there's another opinion or suggestion, I welcome it. So what we just discussed was sort of coming out of quite a lengthy discussion at a committee of the whole meeting, and that was a recommendation by that committee. So I can get you at where the definition of what a living unit is and what common space looks like, such as kitchens and so on and so forth, was really discussed in substantively more depth than we were just sort of fine tuning the recommendation there. So I can get you that information, and those things were all part of that discussion and will be again going forward when that gets to consideration of a regulation. So I without getting into the specifics of that, there's quite a I think it was a well-supported conversation, and I can get you that information as for you for interest. Any other comments on this? Oh, okay. I'll make sure I get that to you. And with that, we look for councillor staff announcements. Councillor French.
Thank you, Mayor Herford. The folks with Nature Squamish, the organization I think that most of us probably know as the Squamish Environment Society, are working to have Squamish declared a bird-friendly city. Claudia Cridge introduced me to the effort a few days ago, and it's clear the organization is well on its way to have Squamish recognized as bird-friendly. Window collisions kill up to 42 million birds a year. A quick and easy way that we, us here at this table and anybody, can help the bird population is to report bird glass collisions at birdmapper.org. This is all new to me. And then it's possible to prevent collisions. There are a few different strategies, like hang reflective items outside of a window that experiences bird strikes. Compact discs hanging from fish wire apparently works quite well. So DIY, quick and easy. There are patterns that can be drawn on windows using white paint markers. There are decals that I believe Canadian Tire, Rona, and Home Depot all seem to carry. And wanted to share this because Nature Squamish wants to get the word out about their effort. They're doing a great job, and it's worth acknowledging. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Greenlaw.
Yeah, I just wanted to take this opportunity to spread the word about the upcoming youth summit that Squamish Youth Council is working very hard to put together. It's coming up on April 26th. It's at House Sound Secondary. It's geared towards the youth from ages 16 to 22, you know, plus or minus-ish. And basically the content of it is effectively how to adult. So it's going to be a great summit, and people are working really hard on it. Really great presenters lined up. So spread the word to people in your network who are in that age group. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I got Councillor Pettingill. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. Just a little update about me and the reason I am home today. So I guess it's about a week and a half ago now, I had a relatively serious crash on my bike, cycling between meetings. Can't lower my, there we go. And shattered my scapula, apparently, and chipped the wrist on my other hand. So, it's been a bit of an adjustment learning to sort of work without the use of an arm, or not just without the use of an arm, but trying not to move an arm. So just a couple things. There was someone who I guess witnessed the crash as they were driving by and stopped to help me. I want to say thank you very much. Unfortunately, I didn't get their name. I think the adrenaline was going and I thought I was going to be fine. So I told them, hey, I don't need any help. Thanks so much for stopping. But it turned out it was a little more than I had thought, but if that individual is paying attention, it just really means a lot. And I think that's a sign of a good community when people see someone struggling or possibly struggling and stopping to check in, to make sure they're okay. And so that is very much appreciated. I spent some time at Squamish General Hospital and was really impressed by all the doctors and nurses on staff. I could overhear them sort of sharing opinions, allowing each other to learn and using it, sort of pieces of it as to teach each other about the process and sort of evaluating something. So it just gave me a good feeling about the staff that we have working at our hospital, and I felt very well taken care of. And it was really great to see that sort of learning and sharing of knowledge within the team. Because my injury was fairly serious, they decided I needed a CT scan. So I got to see firsthand the challenges of not having a CT scan in Squamish, which meant taking a hospital ride down to Lionsgate. And, I understand a CT scan is on the way soon, but can definitely understand the frustration and the importance of that. And I guess the final thing, I will try to be attending as many things in person and so on as I can, but it'll just sort of be dependent on if I think I can manage the day and the sitting arrangements and so on. And I'll probably be dressed fairly casually because it's harder to put on certain clothes, and I depend on my partner to do certain things right now. So yeah. Uh, just appreciate everyone's support as I work through this. And it sounds like no surgery, but it'll take quite a while to get better. So yeah, just a little update for me. Thanks.
Thank you. Other updates? Councillor Stoner, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. And sending our good healing energy your way, Chris. And hopefully that CT scanner gets here soon for our community. There are too many folks who have to travel north or south in order to get basic medical imaging, something that we know is hopefully coming soon. Last week was a unicorn Tuesday, as I call them. It was sunshiny and it was the 5th Tuesday of the month, so there was no council meeting. I enjoyed a little bit of sunshine, which was great, but it was also a very busy week on my end, mostly wearing my UBCM hat. I had the distinct opportunity of going to Victoria on behalf of UBCM with current President Corey Ramsey to present to the Select Standing Committee on the Private Members Bill M216. If folks remember, this is the Professional Reliance Act. Our community made a written submission that raised a lot of concerns around this proposed bill, as did another 76 local governments from across the province, all of which opposed the proposed legislation. A reminder, Bill M216 would require local governments to accept certified professional reports and prohibit us from doing peer reviews. The general message that we shared is that while the objective of the bill, like accelerating the delivery of housing, is an important one that we all share, the proposed approach through Bill M216 is simply just not the way forward. It raises significant concerns around liability, both for homeowners, for local governments, for registered professionals, and also raises significant risks around public safety. And we were one of 4 groups to present to the Standing Committee that day. They have another 3 groups that are presenting to them tomorrow. And then the Standing Committee is expected to make a recommendation back to legislature after tomorrow's meeting. So hopefully they hear the message. UBCM's messaging was very much in line with those who presented before us, which include the professional associations themselves, as well as the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing and the Ministry of Advanced Education. So that was on Wednesday last week. And then on Thursday, want to thank council colleagues, both current and past, because we got some really excellent news from the province that they introduced on Thursday, Bill 18 into the legislature, which would allow for parental leave for all local elected officials through the community charter, amendments to the community charter. And so that would be clear proposed amendments to establish the provincial minimum parental leave entitlements at 26 consecutive weeks, protection from disqualification and continued remuneration for municipal councils, regional districts, island trust. And this is a piece of advocacy work that our council has pushed for very actively since 2019. And there's UBCM resolutions dating back to 2016 on it. So it took a while, but hopefully the vote goes in our favor and the legislation has been introduced on the floor. So that's exciting.
Great. Thank you for that update. We've got Councillor Anderson, then I'll come to you, Councillor Greenlaw.
Thank you, Mayor Herford. I'm not sure whether it's been addressed yet, but in these updates, but on March 1920, we received a delegation from representatives of a few local governments in different regions of Zambia. And I enjoyed it thoroughly. And I know that my colleagues and our staff members who took part in the different gatherings that we had with these guests from Zambia enjoyed it as well and profited from it. And for me, something that stuck out, these communities representatives have each made a presentation on community projects supported by the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, among other organizations. And this is the tie-in that we had with them through the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. But I was struck by when they reported on the projects and the criteria that they were to meet in delivery of these projects. One of them was sustainability. And I had to think about the way their take on sustainability. It wasn't about environment, in fact, at all. They were reporting on an organizational development sustainability. And it was me an example of how we can learn from anywhere in the world about project management and building and sustaining organizations. And the way they discuss sustainability, I found very illuminating. Just one of the joys of that encounter with our guests from Zambia. Thank you.
Thank you for that. You go ahead, Councillor Greenlaw.
Sorry, there was one other thing I wanted to mention. People may not realize that about a week ago, our province passed the third reading for some, changes for basically changes to how PST is applied throughout the province. So I will be doing some advocacy work on basically a bunch of professional services are now being taxed, like bookkeeping, accounting, or will be taxed effective October 1st. Bookkeeping, accounting, lawyers, architects, property managers, all those services and more will be taxable effective October 1st. And my concern is that this flies in the face of several objectives of the provincial government, such as keeping housing costs low, or even keeping large infrastructure projects low as they can. But from my perspective, my biggest concern is how it's going to affect our community and communities across the province through the impact that this will have on small businesses. And this is another way of concentrating taxation on individuals and small businesses as opposed to taxing the wealthy and keeping corporate taxes high and possibly not subsidizing LNG. So to my mind, this is another cash grab that is harmful to our community and worsens the wealth disparity that our entire globe is experiencing. So I'll be doing some advocacy on this and I'll keep you all posted.
Thank you for that. Councillor Pettingill, you have something additional?
I'd forgotten. Last Tuesday was the 5th Tuesday, so we didn't have a normal council meeting. But BC Hydro and Woodfibre LNG were holding an engagement about some power lines proposed through Brackendale. There has been a fair bit of community concern and questions about this, and I know some of my colleagues attended or spoke to some of the folks from Brackendale. Just a short summary, I think BC Hydro and Woodfibre LNG heard pretty loud and clear about a number of concerns with the process and the answers. And so I think there are some more discussions to be had there. I always worry about our ability as a local government to influence change. That probably should happen. But we'll do what I can to stay active and involved there. And it was frustrating to hear, I won't get into it too much, but a minister say some things the following day that seemed to contradict what I was hearing from some of the project proponents the day before. So I think there are some things in there for us to be paying attention to. I'll leave it at that. I think there's more discussions to be had. And thank you to the community for showing up and speaking up.
Okay, so my colleagues have touched on some of the pieces that I wanted to speak to. Since we last had a regular meeting, that the delegation from Zambia through the FCM program was really quite impactful. It was the Federation of Canadian Municipalities supported has a program called Partnership for Municipal Innovation, Women in Local Leadership, or it is also local government. So there's a quality acronym in there, PMI WIL, and which is funded by Global Affairs Canada, which I think is an important piece and coordinated with FCM. And of course, our staff have been engaging with this, and there's been some trips back and forth, but the sharing is really remarkable. Councillor Anderson shared some learnings. We have so much to learn from each other, that these roles as elected officials are so unique and mean so many things, so many different things, even inside a British Columbia context or a Canada context. And when you start going further than that, I found it really remarkable. So I'd just like to thank everyone, all the organizers and the folks that came for their generosity in sharing with us. And it was quite a memorable exchange. Also, at the end of March, at the SLRD meeting, it's 2 days of meetings, full days, huge agendas, so it's hard to pick out the one or two pieces. But I will say that there was one of the interesting pieces was there's a proposed campsite near Porto, a private campsite near Porto that advanced through the plant, that had advanced a stage as well. And I think it's really interesting that we have, as a group here, we've been advocating to the province to make investments in camping, whether it be BC Parks or rec sites and trails, and we're starting to see other entities come forward. So this isn't the first time that this particular one's been to the board at the SLRD, but it's advancing through the process. There's also discussion around a proposal from Sorca for a campground as part of their operations in another part of the SLRD, just outside of the district of Squamish. So it's great to see the private sector and community sort of stepping into the space where there's need. I do think that the province still has a sizable role to play in addressing the camping needs of in and around Squamish, but I'm quite happy to see those two pieces advance, or at least continue moving through the process. And then at the end of March, I had opportunity. We had some visitors from the Trans-Canada Trail project come, and MP Weiler was in attendance. The Sea to Sky Trail Society, the Squamish Trail Society. It's the Sea to Sky Trail is the piece that they're working on. But we went for a walk through the Looking Glass Trail, which was funded partially through the Trans-Canada Trail project. And the funding through the Trans-Canada Trail piece really made that happen, but also really acted as a catalyst, like a multiplier for it. That trail would not have been built in the way that it has, or maybe at all, without that funding. I think it's really important to recognize. But walking through there, if you haven't recently, the trail also acted as a fire break during the fire and through last summer, and it's quite remarkable to see. And so it was great conversation walking with the trail with some of the folks that were behind the funding and the planning and the execution of it, and just the importance of sort of continued investment in trails from all orders of government. So it was great to see that there. And they are also apparently their funding arrangement is coming to a conclusion. So this is part of their drumming up support and also stories for them, to proof points for them as they pursue sort of an extension of their funding agreement with the federal government. So it was great to spend some time there. And I think most of my other things were covered by other speakers, so I'll leave it there. And we don't have a motion we'll move on with the agenda. We don't have a motion to close. We have some in-camera announcements which appear on the agenda. I'd be looking for a motion to terminate. Councillor Stoner, second to Councillor Hamilton. All in favor? Motion carries. And thank you to my colleagues that were attending remotely for your work, particularly for your work today. I know it's not always easy to participate in that way, but I'm happy that we could have you. So thank you so much. Until next time.